Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Return to Oz. This is somewhat of a sequel, not really, to The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz was not a Disney film, and this is very. It is Disney-ish, but it's not the kind of thing you'd throw into a. Oh, these are all the classic Disney films kind of thing. It is from 1985. It's an hour and 50 minutes long. It's very much a family film. It's not a musical or anything. There's no dancing down the yellow brick road or anything else. This is sort of a fun little effects movie. I think it's also more based on the L. Frank Baum books, Oz of Ozma and Return to Oz and things like that. I have not read any of the books back then, so it's just from what I gathered from doing a little research on this. Because honestly, when I told somebody yesterday that I was going to watch this next, they just went, "Oh," like they knew what I was talking about because they had seen it, and I have not. This is the first time I've seen this. Believe it or not, it's kind of a cult classic to some people. It's also, if you're thinking of The Wizard of Oz, this is not anything what you're expecting. Yes, it has all the little elements. It's Dorothy is at the center of this. There's Toto, and this is pretty much in the aftermath of the previous film or the adventure that took place in the books. But it's a very, very different uh, approach to the story. Fairuza Balk is her first major motion picture role. She's a little kid in this. She's probably 9 or 10 or something in this. And she's, if you know her, you know her from The Craft. She was in American History X. She's done a bunch of stuff. Not enough. She has this unique kind of beauty to her. She's still a kid here, but like when she grew up, it's her eyes. It's those eyes about her that just draw you in. Here, she's a sweet innocent girl with long braided pigtails, and she's sort of dealing with trauma of coming back from Oz. She clicked her heels with the ruby slippers, but nobody believes her. Auntie M is just like, look, we all lost our homes in a tornado. We're still recovering from that. Uncle Henry, I guess, he's depressed for the most part. He was injured, and he healed a long time ago, but he's still not in great mood because of everything. Uh, and she keeps talking about Oz, and there's talking Tin Man and a talking lion, and everybody's who shouldn't be talking was talking, and 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 nobody believes her. She's a little kid. And they think she's crazy. NEM basically has enough of it, and she takes her on a trip. This is when it gets super dark. She takes her to an asylum. I'm not going to spoil everything for you on this, but just to give you a concept of where this thing heads. Yeah, and she's not just going. She goes to get it like an assessment. The doctor talks to her. Well, what's your story? What did you see? What do you believe happened to you? And he tells her. I mean, she tells him the story. We already know it in The Wizard of Oz. Or, again, the story has to be slightly different, I'm guessing. But enough of the hallmarks. Because I think when they made this, they were like, maybe not everybody read the books, but everybody saw the movie. It's The Wizard of Oz. Come on. So yeah, they do light touches on that. Obviously, all the characters, like I said, all the characters are there. Oz, of course, the city and the Emerald City and everything else, but it's uh, there's no fine details to say, well, this is the same universe. This is an alternate universe, I think, uh, based on the books. So when she tells him that all this stuff, he's like, well, you know what? It's in a few months. It's going to be the 20th century. It's going to be 1900. And so we get a time frame. I didn't realize the time frame. I just figured, they're in the middle of Kansas, so it's pretty rural. It could be 1972 for all we know, in like the future. Oh, sorry. It could have been the future compared to when it was made, in the 30s. I think 30s, 40s. I could be completely wrong. I can't remember when the original Oz was made. Anyway, she, I had no idea of when this was taking place, but apparently in the books, at least, it was taking place at the end of the 19th century. And the doctor says, well, we're going to do a little thing. Electricity is such a big thing now, and the brain is pretty much an electrical piece of machinery. And what happens is that when there becomes too much electricity, we have to just find ways of getting rid of it. He's talking about electroshock therapy on a child. Yeah. So Annie M leaves her with the hospital, with the people in the asylum. It's literally an asylum. And at one point, she starts seeing another girl. Like another girl shows up in her room as they wait because she's going to have the procedure the next day. But another little girl shows up, and she doesn't know who she is. I don't know where she came from. She's probably about her age, a little older maybe, and she's like, "Oh, we got to help you out here." And one of the most unsettling things. I mean, you do realize what's going on, but at one point you realize the child understands to a certain degree what's going on, that she's in trouble, and she says, "Did I hear people screaming?" It's to hear that, to realize this girl has been abandoned by Auntie M. Auntie M has been abandoned by her family, what remains of her family, to be zapped in the head and probably left drooling for the rest of her life. Because back then, that was the pinnacle of science. Because, hey, electricity was the new thing. It's just so freaking dark. And of course, Dorothy manages to escape, even though they are seconds away from. They put the clamps down over her head. They put her tied to the table. And everybody's just like, well, this is just business as usual. This is just the way it is. These are adults who are like, you know what? There's a small child and she has strange dreams. So, what we're going to do is just zap her until she doesn't have the strange dreams anymore, or possibly control her bodily functions. So, anyway, she does that, and she escapes. She escapes with the help of her strange little friend, and this friend has knowledge of Oz. And then she gets sent off on an adventure. And in this adventure, we get to see the way this film was done. Obviously, we're pre-CGI digital effects and things like that. There's a lot of stop motion animation, especially the rock formations that are through this. It's kind of really great. King of the Norn, is that what it is? King of the Norns, whatever. Anyway, there's there's a lot of physical puppetry, not like almost muppetry, because Brian Henson shows up in this as I think a physical. He does some physical work. I don't know if he does the voice or everything. Oh, and by the way, since Toto it might have been a little bit too difficult to animate or puppet, probably didn't look as real. Well, no, also, again, it might have been from the book. I don't know. You might know if you read the book. Her sidekick this time is a chicken. Yeah, a talking chicken. With a voice that I'm sure those of us who've seen older movies would recognize. But yeah, she sounds very, very familiar. I can't find her name right now. But the chicken is half the time a real chicken. Perusa's carrying her around under her arm, and other times she's a puppet whenever they need her to do a specific head motion or talk. There's also full-bodied, Pumpkin Jack or something like that, a pumpkin head character. There is also a not necessarily animatronic, but puppeted moose, stuffed moose head. Then there's also a very rotund robot called TikTok. He's makes it clear he's not alive. You turn the crank to make him think, another one to make him speak, another one to make him move, and he is an army within himself that acts as a protector for Dorothy. So yeah, it's again, I'm telling way too much, but it goes some weird directions, and when you get bad guys in this. Yeah, there's beyond the rock monster, the rock creature, right? The king. Basically, it's only been weeks or months since Dorothy's been away from Oz, from what I can tell, because she's still obsessing about this, and they're still rebuilding after the tornado. Um, but it seems like it's been a long time since she's been in Oz. Like time passes differently, uh, and Oz has been destroyed and taken over by bad guys, and there's a witch who switches heads. Yeah, she changed. That's one of the, what's also another one of the more unsettling things. Just see a woman take off her head, and then just pick another very animated, moving head from a row of cabinets, and they're all just looking at Dorothy like, "Hey, how you doing?" And she puts that head on her shoulders, and she's just a different woman, different actor each time. And by the way, there's still connections, by the way, to the real world and the Oz world in this, and I'm not going to spoil that. But there's also, for minions, instead of flying monkeys in this, they're it's like this weird. Imagine a Cirque du Soleil clown type character mixed with like a David Bowie nightmare mixed with people whose hands and feet are rollerblade wheels. That's the best I can. They're the wheelies. That's the best I can tell you. That is, I don't know how these have never been cosplayed that I know of at any show. Probably because it's super dangerous and they'd be falling over constantly and running into things and knocking things over at conventions. But still, if I saw a group of wheelies coming through, I'd be like, holy crap, this is a deep cut, and somebody needs an award for taking the amount of time to, one, make the costumes, do all the makeup, and then also run around all day on four wheels. Yes, it's they're the goofy minions. You're not going to animate monkeys or anything else. Again, they go all over the place. Like I said, there's no. I don't think there's a Jim Henson company involved in this at all that I know of. I could be completely wrong, but since Brian Henson is involved, there's some, I'm sure there's some sort of crossover there. Stop motion. There's lots of blue screen too. Every so often, when Dorothy is falling, let's say, in a certain scene, but it never seems completely out of place. And this movie is 1985. It works for 1985. Even so, they film it in a way that looks like this was made in the 60s. It feels like a much older film, maybe because it takes place in an older time and the characters have a certain look to it. But if this movie was released in 1960, it would have blown people away. Just blown people away. Yeah, Ray Harryhausen was doing tons of stop motion animation with Jason the Argonauts and stuff like that back then. But I was really impressed. I really did like the layering of the rocks as they animated the faces of certain the rock creatures and things like that. Not just like a full-bodied rock man kind of head, but just how they would make it speak and react. It's kind of great. So yeah, it's technology that would never be used now. It'd all be 3D CGI animation. It's a totally different world, but it's neat to look in on this era and go, oh yeah, that's how they did it back then, and it took no small amount of effort to get that done. So it's kind of neat. I'm trying to think who else is in this that you might recognize. Oh, Tim Rose plays the body of TikTok. He, for those who are Star Wars fans, last week we were at Star Wars Celebration. Tim Rose was Admiral Akbar. It's a trap, So, but he has no soft body parts on TikTok. It's all robot parts. So it's kind of neat. It's yeah. And Brian Henson was the physical body of Jack Pumpkinhead. Jack Pumpkinhead seems like a somewhat familiar familiarly styled character. But yeah, and there's Tin Man, Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion show up in this. They do not have a big part at all, but they do not look anything like you see right here. That's the Scarecrow. Yeah, you're not getting Ray Bolger. You're not getting I can't remember the rest of the guys' names. You're not getting all those guys. People who look like them. This is completely. His face is for the most part static, except for the mouth movement. And I think they swap heads depending on what expression they want him to do while talking. So it's the whole head isn't movable all the time, but his eye expressions, mouth, how his mouth works, is changed out depending on the scene. It's kind of interesting how they do that. They must have had a bunch of heads. I don't know, but yeah, it's this is not your grandparents, great grandparents Wizard of Oz at all. Yeah, it's I can see this having a bit of a big cult following, especially if you want the non-traditional, non-Judy Garland Wizard of Oz type fandom. Let's just say. So yeah, it's I think it's worth checking out just to say you saw it. It's not going to do you any favors if you're a Wizard of Oz fan of the film, I should say. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, that's just a continuation of the thing I love so much. No singing, and I'm pretty sure most of the little people in this were not played by little people. They were just like, hey, you know what? We're going to just shoot a bunch of scenes here at the very end where there's munchkins, and we're going to just shoot everybody from the mid-waist up and have them standing amongst the Cowardly Lion and others and just like, hey, So yeah, it's there's no still conclusive proof that Dorothy, that Dorothy's gonna get out of this in the end. Obviously, she's a hero, but there's no conclusive proof that what she experienced isn't still just completely in her head. She might be crackers. We don't know. She might have some really serious problems, and I can see a much darker film being made out of this in the 21st century, and just having it like billed as a short film or a film that nobody has any idea is a take on the Wizard of Oz thing, and then suddenly you're halfway into it and you're like, holy crap, that is Dorothy. This is a woman dealing with her psychosis. And you just see some really dark, twisted versions. You know what? There probably is already something like that out there. You gotta check YouTube. So I did find it funny at the very end of this, when you watch this, it did recommend that I watch The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which we watched yesterday. Come on, Disney Plus. Keep a track. At least I'm keeping track. Why don't you keep track of what I watch? Why would you recommend something to me that I watched yesterday? I realize the algorithm is pretty tight, but and that might be the default thing you show somebody, but come on. Just have a list of things that are similar, and if you see that I already saw it, because I know you're tracking all of it, if you see that I already saw it, don't recommend it to me. Recommend something else. It could be more useful. Not that I'd watch it, because I have this, but anyway. Speaking of which, let's pick tomorrow's episode.
31.
I just need to hear you say it. Not just show it to me. 31. Okay. I think we saw shorts relating to this series. Yeah, no, I think we have. Yeah, I think we've seen something like this, but I don't know if we've seen the actual series. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to watch probably one episode. At most two, but I have a feeling I'll get the gist after one episode. We're going to watch Austin and Ally. Yeah. That's what we're watching next. Austin and Ally on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.